This video will contain spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen chapters 102, 103, 104, 105, and what remains of chapters 100 and 101, and Season 2, Episode 13, otherwise known as Episode 37. So the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen is engaging in some doping, and in this series, I'm going to be analyzing the story of the series as it airs and, as a manga reader, comparing the anime to the manga to see what they pulled over directly, what they modified or expanded, and what they just straight up removed. The script is written based on the manga, so if the action plays out a little differently in the anime, that's why. But the results are the same, so it's no big deal. So let's begin with the 13th episode of Season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. First, I'll recap the plot and explain what chapters it covered. The episode begins by jumping back just a bit to before Yuji entered Shibuya Station. He's running along the highway towards the south end of the Scramble Crossing and looks over the edge to street level to see hell on earth below him, with civilians being ravaged by transfigured humans. As he agonizes over his inability to save everyone and how Shibuya Station and Gojo are right there, suddenly, onigiri ingredients. Knowing what that means, he looks down below him and sees Inumaki, ready to help with his megaphone. Leaving the situation to Inumaki and his cursed speech, Yuji enters the station at 10:10 p.m., only to be confronted by Choso. Choso proves that with Yuji, it's on sight, and wastes no time with an opening attack of piercing blood. We get a short explanation regarding convergence, a setup technique that condenses the user's blood and compresses it to its limit. Once this is done, the hands are held together and the blood is fired from the small gap between the user's fingers. Now reinforced with cursed energy, the blood is said to reach the speed of sound. Yuji takes a shot straight on, managing to block his face with his arms. Just as he thinks it's going to break through, he manages to deflect it away from himself. Choso wastes no time lining up another shot, this time spinning the blood as he uses convergence, causing it to take a wavy path as he fires it. Yuji dodges this and closes the distance between the two, striking Choso. He realizes that the pressure of the situation has thrown him off, causing him to revert to Divergent Fist, which Choso notes as double impact and regards as a strange technique. Breaking off for a moment, Yuji notes that the impact to his arm was substantial, and he's having trouble moving that arm, so he'll have to fight with his good arm. Choso takes a moment to ask Yuji if his brothers had any last words. Yuji is initially confused, but Choso makes it clear to him who he's talking about. Yuji regretfully informs him that they didn't really have any last words, but they did cry. This infuriates Choso, who calls on his brothers to witness his vengeance for their sake. Choso is trying to keep his distance advantage and sending wave beams at Yuji like Samus. Yuji notes that he's staying away from him, and the speed of the blood beam gives him only 50-50 chances of dodging them, and if he were unlucky enough to take one to the head, it would mean instant death. With that in mind, he decides to go with an unorthodox strategy to control when the shot comes. He hops off the ground, and Choso immediately knows he's being baited to fire at a particular time, but goes along with it anyway. Timing his shot to hit Yuji just before his feet hit the ground, when he would theoretically be unable to do anything to dodge it, Choso fires. Yuji spins at the last second and falls back first to the ground. He bounces off his elbows to regain his footing and takes off at a high-speed crouch run beneath the blood beam. Choso attempts to swing the beam down like a really long sword, but Yuji manages to dodge, taking note that the beam only manages to hit its top speed at the moment of firing, and afterwards is slow enough to easily dodge even if it's redirected. Ready to engage in a fist fight, Yuji failed to notice the floating blood droplets behind him, and Choso uses a special attack of his own design, Supernova. The blood droplets explode, pummeling Yuji's back. Supernova is compared to buckshot, sending condensed blood projectiles flying in every direction. Choso creates a knife out of his blood and stabs Yuji in the foot. Ignoring this, Yuji kicks Choso's arms back into him with his stabbed foot, uses his hands to spin himself, and brings his other foot down across Choso's shoulder and face. As Choso reels from the attack, Yuji decides to keep him from making more blood orbs via convergence, but Choso takes aim as if to fire anyway. Yuji is caught off guard, thinking he can fire even without the orbs, but it was a fake-out. Choso activates Flowing Red Scale and lands several blows against Yuji in the opening he created. He pummels the shit out of Yuji using the enhanced strength of the doping effect brought on by flowing red scale, and before Yuji can regain his footing, pulls off a convergence followed by a point-blank piercing bloodshot to Yuji's gut. Though this sends Yuji flying backwards across the hallway, he lands on his feet and stands up. Choso notices that he was too impatient, and the shot didn't hit as hard because he didn't give the blood enough time to fully compress. Suddenly, Mekamaru decides to pipe up again. Yuji wonders what he's been doing the whole time, and Mekamaru says he still has something he needs to do, so he had to conserve energy. He sees Choso and tells Yuji he uses blood manipulation, a technique he's familiar with because of Kamo. That being said, he doesn't know its weakness, as it's a prized technique of the Kamo clan, and is well regarded for its versatility at all ranges. He mentions that Choso won't suffer from blood loss either, which I'll address in the analysis section of the video, as Yuji dodges another bloodshot. Mekamaru directs him to retreat to the bathroom, so they can test a potential weakness with what he estimates to be a 10% chance of success. Since he'd gradually die anyway, it's better than nothing. Yuji dashes into the bathroom as Choso gives chase. He stops once he starts hearing sounds from the bathroom he can't place, and palms a blood ball while remarking he needs to stay on his toes. Mekamaru taunts him, hitting his emotional weak point to get him into the bathroom, and Choso busts in to find water pouring out of broken sinks and sprinklers. Choso shoots his shot to take out Mekamaru, but Yuji emerges from a stall behind him. As Choso tries to use Supernova, it fails to his surprise. We receive an explanation, pointing out that convergence halts the natural coagulation of blood to increase the effectiveness of the technique. Otherwise, the blood would have a hard time moving at speed or taking shape as it coagulates and hardens. Due to this, it dissolves more readily in water, and the red blood cells' membranes tear under the osmotic pressure of the water. This removes the user's ability to control the blood. Due to the presence of all the water, Choso is only able to control blood inside his body. Due to his inexperience, he's not certain why it happened, but he knows he can only control the blood inside his body. Focusing on this, he unveils the Super Saiyan 2 form of flowing red scale, Stack. Or maybe it's more like a Kaioken times 2 to times 4 type situation, since it's red and just enhances the attack power directly. Anyway, he's stronger now. Yuji also takes note of the fight now being a physical one, his turf, and the two stare each other down. They engage in a heated exchange, and Yuji thinks he can win, but just as he does so, that blood ball Choso kept in his palm comes back into play. Throwing the blood compressed and hardened to its limit so that it resembles a hard stone, using the strength of flowing red scale Stack, the attack is coined Blood Meteorite. It pierces Yuji's liver and exits his body. While he experiences fear that he's going to die, Yuji recenters himself and turns that fear into cursed energy. He grounds himself in the belief that he doesn't need to be the one who saves Gojo, as long as he takes down Choso and clears the way for others like Megumi and Nobara to make it to Gojo, even if it means he dies. Choso notes that even though Yuji only hit him 3 times, he took a lot of damage. He also notes that Blood Meteorite was only as effective as it was because he caught Yuji off guard with it. He explains he made the blood knife earlier using a setup technique known as Blood Edge, which spins blood at high speed in a specific shape. Debuting another use of blood manipulation, he hardens his blood around his fist, making it take on an Armstrong from Revengeance-esque look, despite it putting him at risk of developing sudden onset thrombosis. Another flurry of blows, and Yuji ducks behind a stall door, confusing Choso. He busts through the door feet first, and Choso manages to block his face with his hands. Yuji transitions into a hold with his feet around Choso's head, and hits him with a Hurricane Rana type move, twisting and throwing him to the ground. As he's staggered, Yuji presses the attack, setting up an attack with a feint from his right hand. He figures Choso assumes he can't use his left hand anymore since he hasn't used it since his first attack, and strikes at Choso's body with his left hand. The attack doesn't seem to have an effect, and Yuji notes it didn't feel right. Choso brings his hardened hand down on Yuji's shoulder in a hammer strike, doing some serious damage to him, and hits him with a Gyakuzuki, or karate reverse punch, to the gut with his hardened hand, sending Yuji flying backwards and smashing into the wall. He reveals that he also hardened his body where Yuji struck him, again, just like Armstrong, which is why Yuji's attack didn't affect him. Just as he goes to finish Yuji off, suddenly a memory that he didn't have before appears in Choso's head of Yuji enjoying a happy picnic alongside himself and his brothers. As he stumbles away, Mimiko and Nanako approach Yuji's unconscious body, and the episode ends. With the recap out of the way, let's go over the basic points of the plot. 1. Yuji arrives at Shibuya Station with some help from Inumaki and his cursed speech. 2. Yuji is confronted by Choso and they engage in battle. 3. The hard-fought battle ends with a big L for Yuji, but something unexpected happens before the final stroke is struck. 4. Mimiko and Nanako approach an unconscious Yuji with nefarious intentions. Now let's get into some analysis. As this is a battle-heavy episode, there won't be quite as much to talk about here, but let's start with Choso not having to worry about running out of blood. So if you'll remember from Season 1, Kamo from the Kyoto school uses pre-prepared blood bags with his technique to avoid the issue of becoming anemic from using too much of his own blood. In this episode, Mekamaru says that Choso doesn't have to worry about that. But why? Well, this is explained in the after chapter page of chapter 103 in the volume release of the manga. It states that since the Cursed Womb death paintings were born from the combination of cursed spirit and human blood, they have the special ability to convert their cursed energy into blood to use for their techniques. So as long as they have cursed energy, they can convert it into blood to use their techniques without risk of developing anemia like Kamo would. A pretty convenient workaround of that technique's major weakness, huh? Next, let's take a mini Juju stroll again. This week, we just have Yuji's journey to Shibuya Station. First, let's jump over to the Cerulean Tower, where we last saw Yuji before he arrived at Shibuya Station. He ran this way up the freeway, and ended up at about this spot here, overlooking the south end of the Scramble Crossing / Shibuya Station area. Just under here is the staircase where he saw Inumaki, and he leapt off down to street level to enter the station. Finally, let's go over the bonus pages from the volume release of the manga. This week we have more than usual because they were able to cram a lot of chapters into this episode. After chapter 101, we get a page explaining summer uniforms for Jujutsu High, pointing out that the summer and winter uniforms aren't that different from each other, with the summer one just being more breathable. As we learned from Gojo back in Season 1, the uniforms can be customized on request, which is why Yuji's had a red hoodie attached to it. Nobata, however, did not know this, and so has the default uniform design, which she doesn't seem too happy about on this page. For those unfamiliar, in Japan, students wear uniforms to school, which is a thing in America as well, but usually only at private schools and religious institutions. I myself attended such a school for kindergarten, and so spent a year having to wear a uniform to school and keep my hair a certain way. Interestingly, most high schools in Japan are actually private schools, as high school is not part of the compulsory education system in Japan like it is in America. It's perfectly acceptable for Japanese people to graduate middle school at age 15 or so and not go on to high school, instead immediately entering the workforce or otherwise participating in adult life. But it's not a common occurrence because education is so prized and important in Japanese culture, and typically a child not being able to attend high school is reflective of them coming from a poor background where they couldn't afford to go to high school. Anyway, moving on to chapter 102, we get a page explaining the disease curse. Akutami explains that he wanted to choose a disease that wasn't likely to have had an impact on anyone reading, so he went with smallpox since it's been eradicated since 1980. He also states Gettount is lying here and calling it a deity, when in fact it's what he refers to as a quote-unquote hag. I don't fully understand the difference that's meant to imply, and I think there might be a bit of a translation block here, but I think the basic idea is just that he's overstating the power / position of the cursed spirit, which apparently Mei was able to notice. After chapter 103, we get the page explaining Choso's cursed blood. After chapter 104, we get a page addressing quote-unquote side ponytail's sword, which obviously Akutami is just being diplomatic and not referring to him by his proper name of blonde shithead. He explains that the blade can be switched out and that it can, quote, even be transformed into a cursed tool, unquote, which again feels like a translation error or issue to me, as it's my understanding that any weapon imbued with cursed energy is referred to as a cursed tool, which would mean this sword already is one, so I don't understand how it could be transformed into something it already is. Anyway, he admits that he made this reason up after the fact because he got tired of drawing the rings on the sword. Finally, after Chapter 105, he offers some supplementary information on blood manipulation. He states that blood acts like a single organ during blood manipulation, meaning that care must be taken because hardening blood, like with blood meteorite, runs the risk of blood inside the body hardening as well. For this reason, heating or freezing blood is also a risky proposition. And that's my episode recap and story analysis for the 13th episode of the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen. Make sure to subscribe and turn on bell notifications if you want to be here as soon as possible each week as I put out new videos for each episode as it airs. And feel free to drop a comment with suggestions as to other videos you might like to see, such as character analysis videos or explanations. Thanks for watching.